And welcome everyone to another exciting adventure of the energy that surrounds us. I had to think for a second which show I was doing. And so with that in mind, I do have a couple of announcements for this show. You will notice there is one guest with us today. The other guest, unfortunately, could not get away from work, and so I promised him he could come on a show another day, and we will bring him on. So if you were looking forward to both of them, you get the joy of Natalie.
You get the joy of me, less the moist.
And so we promise we are going to have a really fun show for you all today. And we are going to be talking about something that I don't really delve into a lot because I'm not in that part of the field. And so I am super excited to have Natalie on to share about this part of the field of the paranormal, and that is the filmmaking side and being a part of the documentary films or paranormal movies. And so without further ado, I'm going French apparently. Adieu.
Adieu.
I am going to turn it over to my guest to start us off on this exciting adventure. And so I give you the one, the only experiencer extraordinaire and comic extraordinaire, Natalie Smearman.
Hey, everybody. I'm Natalie Smearman. I'm a part of Relic Films, and we do a lot of documentaries, and we love to have fun. And our motto is, if you are not having fun, you are doing it wrong. So we live by that. So we want to make sure that everybody does have a good time, especially when you come to see one of our films. You know, we want to provide you with 100% accuracy. Everything that you see is what we experience. We do not have a script. We do not stage anything. We go out in the field, and what you see is what you get. So, that is, we have a film out called The Vanished, and that is about 2 unsolved missing person cases. That's okay. I love animals. It's about 2 unsolved missing person cases that are out of the Smoky Mountains, and it is incredible. What we did is we went in to look at 2 different cases, the Mike Huron case and the Dennis Martin case, and both of those are pretty famous in the area. But we went in a different manner. We just didn't say, oh, here's the evidence. but we went in and we did actual day and night investigations in and around the areas where they went missing. And we had no idea what we were going to find, if anything. Honestly, we heard about, Bigfoot and Dogman and whatever. And what we found was way off the beaten path of what we thought we were going to find. And I love walking into a certain scenario like that. You don't know what you're going to get. And we look for everything. And we got orbs, we got fairy lights, we got metal clanking and banging in the middle of the forest coming at us with flashes of light. We got blobs in the trees that were very well known within the Cherokee community to be entities that would steal people. So we got a lot of information, a lot of evidence, and it's all caught on film. So every bit of what I just said is in this film. You could see all of it. And that's what we loved going out and doing. We don't have any boundaries. And another thing I know Greg will be on another show, but Greg, I have come to him going, hey, I have an idea. Let's do this experiment. Let's do this. He's like, yeah, do it. Do it. No matter what it is. I have never been told, don't do that. That's too dangerous. The more that we press the boundaries and just see where we can go, the better, because then we're going to grab more evidence for our viewers to see. Because not always are you going to have somebody going, you know what, I'm going to go do a night investigation in the middle of the Smoky Mountains, and we are with cameras, and we're going to capture this in night vision, and we're going to capture this on a thermal, and we're going to capture, this person's reaction. We do it all. So we want to make sure that we bring everybody what we see to the film, and for everybody for their enjoyment and just an understanding of what's out there. So it's really cool. And that's what our latest is right now.
No, that's really cool. And I'm kind of curious because we know, like, TV shows, they answered, an ad or
Mm-hmm.
something, or, an agent got a hold of them and said, hey, here's this opportunity.
Yeah.
So did you, and how would you recommend for others if they want to tap into the filmmaking side of it? How do you go about getting yourself on the radar of that community?
So here's what I did. Um, I, for a long time, I was a single mom and I was out there. Uh, yeah, I'm wearing my black shirt tonight. Thank you. So for a long time, I did a lot of investigating in my own home, just in books and TV shows and documentaries and interviews, because being a single mom, I couldn't get out in the field. When my kids got to a certain age, I said, I can go ahead out and do certain things. So the first place I went to learn more was the Ocala Bigfoot conference. And this was in 2024. My goal was to learn as much as I could, to talk to as many people as I could, to learn more and more and more. Then I went there. I started talking to everybody. I didn't meet a stranger. I got people telling me their stories locally outside of Florida. And I got to meet all of these speakers that I've gotten to know on television and documentaries. So Adam Davis was one of them. RPG was another. Ken Gerhardt, Russ Accord, they were all there. And they were more than willing to talk to me and to have me learn. Well, I really got to know Adam more. And so we all became friends, all of us, and we all stayed connected. I then decided to go out and start doing field investigations on my own. And I started recording what I was finding. And I was going into the Everglades and the Ocala National Forest and certain places around here where there was a lot of activity. And so what I was posting my findings, and I think the one mistake some people make is they go out there, and if they can't identify what something is, Oh, it could be a Bigfoot. Oh, it could be a Dogman. I don't do that. I look at it for what it is. And if I hear something or see something that I'm not sure, I go and I ask a local. And that's what I did. If I wasn't sure about something, I asked a local and I said, "What is this?" For instance, I was out in the middle of the Everglades camping. I was doing a solo camping investigation. And I had, in the middle of the night, I heard a chirp, a bird's chirp. Birds don't chirp in the middle of the night, which woke me up. And then a few moments later, something very large walked past my tent, stopped, and started. It sounded like a young child trying to talk, but just it was gibberish. And I'm laying there very silently. And the mistake, an early mistake, novice mistake, I didn't press record on my phone because I'm just laying there like, what's going on? I sit up very slowly. By that time, it had already left. Well, I started asking some people that weren't really locals. They're like, "Oh, that was a skunk ape. You came across a skunk ape, or you came across this." And it was like, I need to know something a little bit more. So a lady that I ran into, she goes, "I know a local biologist." So she called the local biologist. They're like, "Oh, yeah, that's a Florida panther in heat. A male Florida panther in heat makes those noises." I called a friend of mine who runs a wildcat refuge and I said, "Is this accurate?" He goes, "Oh, absolutely." So you really have to weed out the evidence that you find. And after everything is weeded out, then you can make a determination of what it really is. If it's nothing that you can identify and nobody can identify of what it is, then you've got to think about outside the box. Is it a cryptid? Is it paranormal? Is it something else? So that's what you have to really look at. Because I looked at it that way and I produced my findings online, people were watching. A lot of people watch this stuff. What did she find? Maybe I should go down there and find out something else too. A month later, we went down there and found a structure that we couldn't explain. This was in the middle of the swamp, and it was a massive structure, very long structure. And this is not tree fall. This was pushed and maneuvered and balanced in a certain way. This tree had to be 30 feet long, long ways, balanced. Nobody's out there. So then we had to say, this is something that we're not sure about. So that is something I recorded, I posted online. Because I'm finding these certain things, then I was contacted by Adam the following February going, "Hey, I'm partnering with Relic Films. We already made a film. We're looking for someone to come in and take a look at things in a way that you're measuring. Not everything is a cryptid. Not everything is paranormal. We're going to look at it with fresh eyes. And what is it? Take a look at a scientific methodology of looking at things." So that's how I got involved with Relic Films, is because I went out, I networked, I talked to people, I asked questions, and I did my research in a scientific method and really just put it out in front of everybody to see. So I want to share all the evidence that I find. I want to share that information with others. And that's how I got involved.
No,
I know
it's really
it's a
cool.
long
And no, I appreciate it because there are people out there who, often wonder, is, how, that works and everything. And one thing that kind of popped in my head, though, as you were sharing your story, is going, single mom, alone in the Everglades.
Mhm.
How is that a good idea?
It's not. But you know
Well,
what? I wanted to do something and you make yourself look vulnerable to lure something in. And that's what I did. And and for those of you who don't know me, I always carry bear spray. Always. I don't carry a pew pew because I don't want to hurt anything. I want to stun it enough to keep it away for me to get away. So I always carry bear spray. So I had my bear spray and my knife.
no.
So I figured if there's anything around, like a bear, a wild boar, a panther, anything like that, I know bear spray is going to work. So that's why I carry it all the time. And it has saved me now twice.
No, and that's good. And you know, I was actually meaning it more of admiration of wow, having the courage to go out there, and do it like you're saying, being, vulnerable and everything. And a friend of mine, Iron Bear, is saying, "Wait,
Mhm.
birds don't chirp at night. What about city birds?"
Mhm.
Just curious because I hear chirping at night, and I know the exact bird noise too. East Carolina bird.
Yeah. So you're right. City birds do chirp at night, but not in the middle of the Everglades. I was in a
Right.
swamp, and that's a little different. So I should have clarified that. So when you're in the swamp, there's a lot of predators around. There's snakes, there's gators, there's crocs, there's all kinds of non-indigenous snakes, like you have your pythons, your boas, and different things like that. So you really don't hear birds chirp down there at night. And I should have clarified that. But yes, you can hear a bird chirp at night. And if it's being attacked, you'll hear chirping over and over and over again. But if it's just a single chirp, and what I didn't know until that night is that male Florida panthers, when they're in heat, will chirp like a pretty little bird. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
But if you go on YouTube and you type that in, male Florida panthers chirping, you will hear the prettiest little song out of them. So I did that day. I looked it up and they do. It was really cool. I learned a lot.
No, that's cool. And you have a fan in the chat room as well. Uh, am
Yes,
I
Mickey.
cake?
I'm a fan of hers as well.
She says you're great to ghost hunt with
Mhm.
and Bigfoot.
Yep.
And
We did some ghost hunting in Missouri, which was really a lot of fun.
it seems like though the everybody likes to say I'm odd. And I'm like, that seems to be the growing trend in the paranormal community is the odd people seem to do really well. But the more like trying to be the normal people tend to, I feel like, kind of do like one or two and disappear.
And it's funny you bring that up because we have a paranormal documentary coming out in September called The Awakened. And we wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to give a totally different view of paranormal investigations, which I think this film is going to be amazing because it shows a whole different side. And I think people will take a look at this going, hey, that's really cool. Because spirits get bored. They're hanging
Yeah.
around. And it's like, okay, my name's Dave. Okay, I da 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 da. Same questions over and over again. What if we went in and entertained them? And that's what we
Yeah.
did. And we ended up getting one of the best paranormal sessions I have ever seen. And it was because we just had a get together and we invited the spirits of this haunted house to come in. Like, come on in. We're having a good time. We had drinks. We had a bar set up. We had all kinds of snacks. And we were sitting around telling stories that were really entertaining, or we were singing or telling jokes. We had cat balls going off. We had bells going off, EMFs. We had all kinds of stuff happening because we were entertaining them. And every time we said something funny, everything just went off. And they had the best time, and we asked them, "Are you having a good time?" And they're answering, "Yeah."
Oh
So
yeah.
we ended up having a little like get together with them. So that was something new that we tried. And another thing that we tried, which was really cool. I love going out and doing experiments, not just with paranormal, but with squatching and doing the cryptid stuff. We decided to marry the two. Hi, Jason. We decided to marry the two. And we went out squatching in an area and we wanted to see, do the spirits know where the squatches are? So I took my dowsing rods out and realized that, Sasquatch is not a normal term used in history. Neither, and Bigfoot is more of a recent term, recent within the last few decades.
Right.
So these spirits were very, 1800s ish. That's where these wars happened. So we went in with our dowsing rods and we said, "Hey, have you seen a hairy man around here?" Yes. Can you point in the location in where they're at right now? And they pointed. So we went down the road, and this is a large area. It's not a small area, it's a large area. So we were going in different parts of these acres, and we pinpointed where all these spirits were telling us to go. And we got to the area and asked the spirit there, "Are there hairy men here?" "Yes." "Where?" And pointed right into where this was. And it was an area of heavy, heavy brush near a lake in between everything. So we pinpointed it right to a point. And I said, "Are there more than 5?" "No." So there's less than 5? "Yes." "Is it a family unit?" "Yes." "Is there a juvenile?" "Yes." I'm like, that is going to change the trajectory of how we are going to investigate. So we decided not to go in and scare them. We're going to go in and we're going to set up a little campfire and we're going to sit around and just talk very calmly, maybe sing a song, very, very subdued. And we put microphones out and we started hearing movement. And on the microphones later, we heard them breathing and they started moving through. And so we got them moving through. We didn't see them because the brush was so thick and we didn't want to scare them because there was a juvenile there. And so they just stood there. They were behind me and just hanging out, listening to us. And once they realized that we weren't a threat, they moved down to the lake. I assume they went fishing. And a couple of hours later, they came back and moved through and just moved back to where they were. So it was a really cool experience. We did not get visual confirmation, but we did get how they projected their energy. And I don't know if anybody has gone squatching before, but when you're in an area where there's a squatch, they project energy and they want to know more about you. It could be that they could be aggressive or they're just interested, and they were just interested. And we kept feeling their energy. It was like a massive rush of energy would just hit you, and you're like, whoa. And they kept doing that to each and every one of us, but they were more interested in the females than the males. They kept projecting their energy onto us. Like, what are you? This is really interesting. You're a female. And so it was all the females that got hit. And then all of a sudden they just moved on. It was really a cool experiment. So, going forward, we will be using the dowsing rods to get the spirits to kind of give us direction as to where to go.
No, that's actually brilliant. And I can kind of attest to that because I was in Arkansas doing sky watching, and the property is known to have Bigfoots. And we saw the, X's and everything, all the signs. And then I saw this really tiny, like, where the ground is here and the rocks were like an arc stacked like that. And I was like, that's a portal. But that's a really tiny portal. And it was literally right in front of an X. And so I was like,
Mhm.
is this a Bigfoot portal? In which case, wait, that it's like my mind is starting to go, how can a Bigfoot fit through there? And then I'm like, well, I'm also kind of making the assumption that he's going to physically walk and he doesn't
Mhm.
change into energy and go that way, in which case he does fit. But
Yeah.
when I could hear them out there, and I feel like a lot of it was more of like, they're saying they're checking us out.
Mhm.
I'm also feel like they're checking out to see what's our intention, what's
Mhm.
our mannerism, how are we going to react? Because I feel like they're one of those intelligences that are out there that I go, yeah, if you're in there just to get us on film and you have
Yeah.
no real interest in us, we're walking on.
Yeah.
But if you have genuine interest in us, we
Mhm.
might stick around.
Yeah. They're not dumb. They're very smart. And they know they can detect electronics, they can detect metal on you as well. And so they're very, very curious, very curious. And it was just, hi, Terry. Um, it's really amazing what they're able to do. And the reason I keep going out and looking is because I want to learn more. And how often have you heard of people saying, I saw a Bigfoot and it turned into an orb and then just disappeared? Or vice versa. I saw an orb and then all of a sudden this Bigfoot appeared. I personally witnessed a Bigfoot walking and vanishing into thin air. I'm like, how does that happen? So you hear about this cloaking. I don't know anything about that. I really don't. I wish I knew more. But that's why I keep going out. Like, what is that? How do they do that? Can they bend energy? Can they manipulate energy? Can they go in and out of realms that easily? How do they do that? So it's really, fascinating to me to learn more about that from a scientific perspective. And, to see that with my own eyes, and I'm going, did I just see that? Like, what is that? And this is after we saw a portal and after we had 3 rakes come out of that portal and one charged us. So a lot of stuff happened that night. And so then when I saw that Bigfoot and it just disappeared, I'm like, this is the most fascinating night of my life by far.
And that kind of goes into my theory of, because we talk, everybody says, oh, I've seen where Bigfoot was, we've seen their footprints, but then they just stop and there's no buildings, there's no structures
Yeah.
that we would identify. And so it's like, well, where did they go?
Mhm.
Are they still there? And a theory I started to come up with is they're probably interdimensional
Mhm.
and they reached their portal, left to go where they're going. And when we look at some of the photos to where it's like it's clear everywhere around, but the Bigfoot's blurred, I'm
Mhm.
like, well, if we take the energy of one portal and there's another portal nearby, everything in the middle is going to be
Yeah.
out of phase. So, what if
Mhm.
that photo is a Bigfoot going from one portal to another?
Yeah.
Would that make sense why he's not in focus, but everything else is? And everyone's like, well, where's the portal device? I'm like, it's nature.
Yeah.
Nature has its own portals. There are
Yeah.
no metal rings like, a
Mhm.
Stargate portal that they need. They just make their own.
Exactly. And they will just it just opens up, and I've personally witnessed it. Greg has personally witnessed one. The portal I saw was a perfect oval shape with it was a bluish white with little twinkling lights around it, like little fairy lights. The portal, well, Greg saw that portal as well, but the first time Greg saw a portal, which he'll tell you, it was an actual rectangle, and he saw what was inside. Now, I've never witnessed that piece of it, but the portal I saw, I'm just like, what is happening right now? Because there's nothing up there on that tree line to create that light. Nothing. Because we had staked out, we looked at the whole property before we went that night. There is nothing there. And there's nothing around for miles. And so we were out there pretty much all alone. And when that portal opened, and those creatures crawled out on all fours very aggressively, I was like, and I had only heard about things like that happening. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I'm warning the others. I'm like, I have a crawler at my 12 o'clock. And I'm like, I have another one at my 12 o'clock. Here's a third one. I'm like, there are 3 of them up there. And I'm like, are y'all seeing this? And Jamie Kelly, who was with me and behind me, she goes, are those things moving? I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh. And they are just on all fours moving back and forth. And I'm going, oh God. And then that's when Greg goes, let me see what I can do. And he let out this long growl, very loud, very guttural growl. And one of them came charging at us. And it galloped and just, it was creepy. It was long. It was lanky. It was just the creepiest thing. And we're like, and I went for my bear spray and I lunged forward and I hit it and it stopped and retreated back. Of course, we had to all retreat back as well because it's bear spray. And as we got to the bottom of the hill, we had already been surrounded by a lot of activity and sounds. And then all the activity and the sounds started moving in. We heard what sounded like a woman screaming behind us. And we turned around and there was a bipedal creature in the meadow behind us. And we caught that on film. And then we had a weird dog that started to bark. And I'm going, what is that? Then these red orbs showed up. And then that's when I saw that Bigfoot walk and disappear into thin air. And then the batteries died. All of our backup batteries died. The therms weren't recording. We were dead. Cell phones were dead. And I'm going, we had 100% charge on everything. We made sure of this. Backup batteries were gone. And I'm like, they just wiped us. They just cleaned us out. And all the movements started closing in closer and closer and closer. And these 3 crawlers, I called them, are still at the top of the hill in an aggressive pose. Like, what are they going to do? And I'm going, and now we're like, what do we do? Because we are now completely surrounded. We could be gone like that. Any of these creatures could have charged us and just destroyed all of us within a matter of seconds if they wanted to. And they didn't. They chose not to. They chose to just be aggressive and be scary and push us out. And so Greg made the call. He goes, this is now a safety issue and we need to get out of here. So we got in our vehicles. 2 of our team members were already very sick from all of the energy and got sick again while in the vehicles. I felt like somebody was sitting on my chest and closing my throat up as I'm trying to drive off. And as soon as we got to the top of the hill and made the turn, we all felt fine. So it was a little crazy. That whole ordeal was just mind blowing. And I'm going, this really just happened. And we all went back to base camp and needed just to sit and just recall, like, I did see that, right? Like, because it was so unbelievable. I did hear that, right? And we're all like, yeah, we heard that. We saw that. That's what happened. That's what happened. And we're just like sitting there, like staring into space. Like, I can't believe that just happened.
And it's kind of interesting because it's like, as I'm listening to the story, it's like the one didn't charge until you got aggressive sounding. And so I was like, at first when I was hearing this and going, oh, it's probably not a good idea going up the mountain past this point. And then all of a sudden you go, yeah, these crawlers were there. And my first thought was, yeah, they're keeping you from going somewhere you're not supposed to go.
Right.
And then there's one behind you, and it's like, well, yeah, they don't want, and I was like, and my first thought was, well, they don't want you to run into something trying to run away from that. So they're trying to,
yeah,
in a protective way, get you to like,
get
okay,
out.
let's calm down, settle. Now let's move and not be like, oh my God, and running potentially, hurt yourself.
Right. And it was almost as if they were protecting something at the top of the hill and they were distracting us. Like, look here, look behind you. And at the top of the hill were these 3 crawlers going, you're not getting past us. They made themselves very, very visible.
Yeah.
And
And
then, but we kept getting distracted. Look here, look here. And it was just like, what are you protecting? What are you guarding? There's something there.
well, and what was interesting too is you said as you're looking at the crawlies and dealing with that, and the one behind you, the Bigfoots walked away and
Mhm.
disappeared. And so it's like, part of me was going, did Bigfoot call this in to, be able to go home without being followed and potentially your team going, oh, this is the portal to the Bigfoot world, and going, hey, we found where, their home and everything. And,
Yeah, it was
like, did he
there was
call in
more
a
than one.
distraction, or was he actually guarding you from them because he put you on alert before this happened and so that you
Yeah.
would be
And,
aware?
we thought about that 100 times. Like, are they trying to protect us from those crawlers? Or did they call those crawlers out to protect something up there from us? They're trying to distract us to get back down the hill. Look here, look here, look here, but don't go up there. So it was very, the more I think about it, the more the more questions I have. And it's like, if I was only back there again to see if we can recreate this to find out the answers that we're seeking.
Right.
But we don't want to go in and disturb, we don't want to go in and harm, but we were just trying to just investigate and just to see what was there. And then it was just like everything
Yeah.
happened.
And talking about Sasquatch or Bigfoot, Iron Bear asked a question earlier I kind of held on to because
Hmm.
of the story we were in. But have you heard of, because I've heard of this from friends in the UK, that there are people and units that are actually going and hunting the Bigfoots and like removing them from areas. Have you heard about that?
I heard of that about that in one state. Um, and I can't remember which state it was, and that was a long time ago. Forgive me for that. But I did hear about that. But a lot of states now are protecting the areas in which they're in. I'm going to give you a perfect example. And here in Florida, there is a piece of land in the Ocala National Forest that is owned by the government. There's a lot of that's owned by the government that you can't go on. Some of it's military related, but there's patches of land that don't have anything military related on it. So one night, a friend of mine and I went out to investigate. It was about 1:30 in the morning. We went down on this bank, and there is a river that separates the land that we can be on to the land that's owned by the government that you can't go on. We get down to the base, to the little sandbar area, and all of a sudden you hear whoop, whoop, wood knock, and a scream from right across the river. Now, in Florida, the vegetation is very, very thick, and you can't see anything beyond a couple of inches because it's so thick. I'm like, they're right there. They're right there. They saw us. They warned their own people, like, hey, there's humans here. Family, stay back. And we couldn't get across there even if we tried because the river is polluted with alligators. So we're seeing eye shine in the water of all the alligators looking at us, and we're hearing this across the way. So I truly believe that the government knows where these places are that they're at. Maybe nesting sites, which you have heard about on Expedition Bigfoot, where the government has gone in and purchased pieces of land that people are not allowed to go on, where nests have been found. Even in the Olympic Peninsula, nests were found. They stopped doing any kind of construction there. So you hear about the Olympic project of teams going out there just to investigate the Olympic Peninsula to see if there's anything further out there. So they've come across a lot of evidence. I believe that to be true in a lot of states, but I do believe that there are a few states that, You have these hunters, you have people, they're like, I want evidence, I want a body, I want DNA evidence. And you hear about this, but you never hear about them getting one. I've never heard about them getting one.
Yeah. Well, it's, people can say they got one, but then it's like, yeah, but then they never actually show.
Mm-mm.
And it's like, or if they do show, it's like that proverbial, like, looks like that costume one. And so you're like,
Right.
did you really, or did you just get the drunken guy that decided to put on a costume and, you know,
Yep.
get his $20?
Bob down the street was promised a six pack. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But,
So you just don't know.
yeah, and going back to the crawlers, Terry has an interesting question, and I
Mhm.
don't know if with your research, delve
Yeah.
into this type of it, but she wonders if the crawlers could be hologram technology.
That is a fascinating question. Really a fascinating question. I can tell you, I don't know. I know what I saw did not look like a hologram, but I'm not saying that it wasn't. If it was a hologram, it looked very, very real. It was very three-dimensional and it was coming straight at us. There was nothing glitchy about it. It was coming straight at us and galloping. And it was rather profound. I mean, we were on high alert after that because Greg went to reach for his pew pew and I got to my bear spray first because I'm like, if this thing gets past us, because I had two members of our team very, very sick from all the energy, and they were behind us.
Yeah.
And if that thing got past me, I didn't know what they were going to do to the two ladies behind me. So that's why I went for my bear spray and just shot it first. Um, I don't know if they could be holograms, but it is a fascinating question. Absolutely fascinating question. That's the first time I've ever been asked that. And it's something absolutely to look into because you don't know what another dimension has. You don't know what even the US government has or any other government has. The technology that they hide from us is, you know,
Well,
pretty profound.
I I can tell you, I saw a show that was coming to a performing arts center, and it was a music concert, and the musician is someone who had passed away, and as
Mhm.
a tribute, their deal was they were putting a disc in the center of the stage, and on this disc was this performer, and you're watching this performer and you're like, oh my god, that really looks like
Yeah.
the artist, and it's solid state.
Mhm.
It's like you're sitting there and you're like, if you didn't know there was a disc underneath, you would not know this was a holographic image.
Yeah.
And that's what it was a hologram. And I know, science fiction shows, a lot of people talk about, all the technology in there is, either we have or we don't have, and there's mixed feelings about it. But Star Trek loves to point out they have a doctor who's a hologram that you can touch
Mhm.
and interact with and is solid, three dimensional. And so when, talking about, the possibility of the crawlers being that, we
Yeah.
have the ability to make that and in our
Yeah.
own world, and so that adds a whole nother
It
element
sure
to it
does.
now.
It sure does. I mean, anything is possible. And Lord knows I have seen so much now that my thought process 2 years ago of what I thought was real, has completely changed. It has evolved. I have a
Mm,
whole different perspective on life and the world and all of the different things that are there with us.
and here's an element too to add to it is, because we have AI around now. Could, and I'm not saying this is what happened with you guys,
Mhm.
but could there have been a camera system there that saw you guys coming and was like, well, what is something that would freak these people out? And AI goes, hey, what about these crawlers? And started
Mhm.
generating holographic crawlers to keep you at bay from
It
whatever's up there.
worked.
Cause like, and so, and that's something we're going to have to face, pretty soon is,
Mhm.
AI generating stuff
Yeah.
is it being used for security and
Mhm.
generating this?
Yeah. It really is. It's incredible. And to answer this question, that is a great question. I know that they tried to get to a location. I don't know if it was the Olympic Peninsula. I know it was somewhere in and around the Pacific Northwest where they could not go any further because the government owned that land and they were not allowed to cross it. And they knew that there was activity in there. Thank you, Jason. So it was really, it was an incredible story because now you saw firsthand that, yeah, the government's buying up this land. You're not allowed on it. Same thing happened here, just with me. Not no cameras, no media, no nothing. And they're like, you are not going on this land.
Yeah. And, we say there's no cameras because there's no cameras we see. I,
Correct.
I kind of had the feeling, because I seen back in when we were in, was it Desert Storm or another one where a soldier was holding up a piece of fabric and all you saw were the arms and the head and his feet, but the rest of the body matched behind. And
Hmm.
so could they have cameras that are behind this material that looks like it's part of the tree
Hmm.
that are watching us all the time? We would
Yeah.
never know.
Literally anything is possible now because of the technology that is being created. Technology that we don't even know anything about that they already have. I mean, look at the military right now. You have people in a little office, in the middle of somewhere in America with a little joystick and they're remote controlling drones all the way across the world going, okay, okay, that's our target. We're going to click and they're done. They're gone.
Yeah.
And you can see that target very, very well.
And
So,
talking
yeah.
about that, I wonder if you caught when we had all those drones in the air on the East Coast and they were trying to figure out where they came from and everything.
Mhm.
And the government's like, we have no idea, this isn't ours.
Yeah.
Did you notice what the Navy put out at the same time? They had a
No.
commercial where a ship opened up a couple of doors on the platform and a bunch of drones came up out of the ship. And I was like, wait a minute. We have a bunch of drones in the sky over our air in our airspace. We say we don't know where they came from. And then we have the Navy showing we have the ability to launch from a ship a bunch of drones. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I the only one that's thinking there's a correlation here?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? And um, it was interesting because I was sitting because I live very close to Port Canaveral. And so at night, they'll be doing experiments. And one night they let out all and large drones, not small ones. I mean large drones. And there had to be 50 to 70 drones that they just let off. And it looked terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I'm like, we're all like, what is happening right now? And I mean, they're all just going in formation, and some of them went off and some of them went this way. And I'm like, we knew it was coming from Port Canaveral. And come to find out, they were doing these experiments with these drones that somebody created, and they were just, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. We're just doing that. What? May want to let us all know. Scared the crap out of all of us.
In Canaveral, when I was last there, they had the large SpaceX building, and so now it's like, yeah, you don't have just NASA playing around there anymore. Now you have
No.
other companies too, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of quite an interesting hub over there.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a lot going on over there. A lot going on.
They do, and so kind of taking a step to something that we talked about earlier with, keeping everything real on like the movies and everything.
Mhm.
How do you find the locations you're going to film at? And also, how do you determine how much time you're going to devote to the film to be like, hey, we're either going to get something or we're not?
Mhm.
But this is the
Yep.
time we have.
Yep. So we do a lot of different things. We do paranormal, we do cryptids, we do missing person cases, anything of high strangeness. That's what we do. And we're constantly doing research into certain areas. And we want to, this film that's coming out is going to be paranormal. We have another film that's going to be coming out that's going to be all cryptid related. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. But we look for areas of, there's been a lot of activity happening. Let's go there and find out what's happening. If it's a place, let's just say the LBL, Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky, we need more than a day to go in there. We need a week because we want to set up shop. We want to do, some recon. We want to set, some parameters. Let's do some experiments. What's working, what's not working, and really hone in and get good information. For the paranormal, we go ahead and research different areas and different facilities that we want to go into that we know have a lot of activity. We'll reach out to those folks and saying, okay, we want to step in, we want to do some filming there, let's map out. And we do almost like a storyline. Like these are the experiments that we want to do. These are the people that we want to have. This is what our goal is. But with that said, our goal is a soft goal. It's not a hard goal ever. Because with the paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, high strangeness, nothing is guaranteed. You can walk into a facility and get absolutely nothing. You can walk into a forest and get absolutely nothing, which has happened. And that's okay. You record it, nothing happened. Okay. Was it how we approached the situation? Was it how we walked in? I can tell you, we have had issues before where we have walked in with a security team looking like armed guards in full camo gear and nothing has happened. That tells me having full armed security guards and full camo is not the way to go. That
Right.
is going to push everything away. They're not dumb. They're going to be like, listen, these guys have big guns. They go pew pew, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
Of
It's like
course,
these guys are not gonna
yeah,
mess around. They don't have
right.
a sense of humor.
Hey, Paul. So, they know. So they're going to be on high alert. If you go in there looking very vulnerable, not threatening, you're going to get more of a response. So, of course, we always take security into account. We want to make sure that, we do have somebody in the team that has a firearm. They have a concealed weapons. They already know, how to handle a weapon, and they're very experienced. For me, I always go in with bear spray just to keep myself protected and others protected. Not saying that I want to hurt anything, but if something were to happen, I can use the bear spray and keep them at bay. There's no permanent damage. We
What about
always go
snakes?
in, snake, you know, I like snakes.
Oh,
I love
okay.
them. I'll pick them up. Not the poisonous ones, but a lot of times people will wear snake guards. I don't. I just wear a thick pair of pants and high boots. That's what I use. And I've gotten bit before by snakes, non-poisonous ones. I already have a tetanus shot. You just clean it up and boom. And so that's right. I'm the bear spray queen. So that's, we want to make sure, what are the local animals? What are the local cryptids? Where's the local hospitals? We always map everything out, the police station, we let them know. If we go into a forest, we let the forest rangers know where we're going to be and what we're doing. We always want to let somebody know that we're there. And so that's how we keep our security measures intact, so to speak. We always have a first aid kit. Sometimes we have a registered nurse there, or we have somebody close by that knows what they're doing. But normally if you do a paranormal investigation, that's really not the case. You're going into a building, you're going into an asylum, a haunted house, and you're really not going to need that level of security. But on the flip side, I always carry some black salt with me. I always go in and I meditate always before I go into any investigation, whether it be cryptid or paranormal. Clear the head. And if I'm sick, I don't go.
No, that's brilliant and really good to know. And Terry has an interesting question for
Yeah.
you. She says, Natalie, and you kind of hit on this, but
Mhm.
she was saying, do you have safety protocols you use before you research an area, both
Mhm.
physically and spiritually?
Yes, absolutely. I did touch on the physical part. We do protect ourselves, um, but also spiritually. I know for me, I meditate, I pray. I pray to also Archangel Michael to keep us protected. I pray to our guardian angels that, that we're able to see something but keep us protected. Go in with good intentions, a positive mind, body, and soul. If you are sick in any way, don't go in, because if you are vulnerable in any way, you will be a target. With cryptid investigations, they can hit you with certain types of energy that can make you physically ill. If you go into a paranormal investigation, you may have something attached to you or have a bad experience because you are vulnerable. So, just a word to the caution, a little cautious little note, because you don't want to go in not being 100%. So
Right.
that's my answer to that.
No, I totally agree, and that was a great way to answer that. And while asking that, I kind of had a question come to mind, but it's like it, with your situation, it gets a little bit on the personal side. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, oh
you can
man,
go
do I
ahead and
want to
ask.
go there? But I'm wondering, because being a single mom,
Mhm.
has there ever been a time, or do you think there will be a time when you will go on an investigation and your kids want to go with you and go on these? And would you be okay with that? Or at what point would you say, no, you have to wait until you're at least such and such an age?
Well, my son's 21 and my daughter's going to be 18 this Saturday. So they're of age, but they're really not interested in going out. Though they're interested in doing the paranormal, all for it. They would have to just take precautions like I take precautions, and I would be perfectly fine. If they ever asked me to go on a cryptid investigation, I would take them to some place that I know is rather tame. I would not take them into the LBL. Absolutely not, until they were more, I guess, seasoned with investigating in forests, what to look for, and having an experience in another forest before going into the LBL, because anybody that investigates in the LBL, you've got to know what you're doing. That place is no joke. That's 170,000 acres of high strangeness. There's reports of rakes, Bigfoot, Dogman, shadow figures, paranormal. You've got all of it there. And sometimes it can be rather overwhelming. And there have been multiple reports of murders there, unalivings, where people were shredded and partially consumed. From what? We don't know. And so I would not want to take them into those areas until they were far more seasoned than just a novice.
Yeah. Well, happy early birthday to your daughter.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, big 18.
And so, and that raises an interesting question because there's an area near where I live in San Antonio. A friend called it the haunted forest. I've kind of called it the dimensional forest
Mhm.
because when you go in there, it's like I can hear things moving amongst the trees, but there is physically nothing there. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, that's a cryptid. I know, and I can
Yeah.
sense them. But what got trippy to me was, well, to start with, we cross a bridge and the moon is high, but I could not see the water beneath the bridge. It was totally blacked out. And I'm like, what am I walking into?
Yep.
Then, you know, we cross the bridge, and in the forest, as I said, I can hear things rustling through the trees. But then it's like we went into this one certain area, and it's like this misty white kind of glow starts to happen.
Mhm.
And he goes, okay, now can you get us out of here? And I turn around and I start walking and I stop. He goes, why did you stop? And I go, because somehow I just turned around and I never actually moved. It's like the ground went from like I'm walking away from this all of a suddenly to I'm
Mhm.
walking towards, and I'm like, I never moved. What? And
Yeah.
so I stopped and was like, kind of looked, got my bearings real quick, and I was like, oh, okay, we need to go this way.
Mhm.
And we actually got out. And my friend looks at me and his jaw kind of drops a little bit. I'm like, what? He goes, we always come out further up the way. You actually brought us out exactly where we came in. I was like, well, I was like, you asked. I was like, this is where we got went
Mhm.
in, so this is where we went out. But yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, and I also was kind of like in my head going like, at least
Mhm.
was doing that. But the really trippy thing, though, there was two things in here, and I'm wondering if you've come across this. Why I call it dimensional forest is there would be like trees going across this path, this along the side when you had your flashlight on it. But when you turn your light off, there's pathways you could walk. But
Mhm.
when you put your light on the pathway, there's no path. And you could physically walk through the branches without touching a branch. And I was like, this is an it's like if somebody told me
Yeah.
that, I would be like, this is impossible. But I physically did it myself, and I'm like,
Mhm.
there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
And concrete would move right in front of our faces. It would be
Mhm.
like a pathway would angle off here. We start walking and it would go, yeah, and just we would go in a straight line, even though the
Mhm.
concrete wasn't in a straight line. And I'm
You know,
like,
yeah, it's funny that you say that. Not funny, haha, but funny. Like, this reminds me of the Meadow Project. So the Meadow Project, Trey Hudson, who he is over the director of ASOG, and they have a documentary out called The Meadow Project, where they have encountered similar activity in this meadow in where they research. And you'll be walking along, you think you turned around or you think you went somewhere and you're going straight ahead, and all of a sudden you're not going straight ahead. You actually turned around, but you didn't turn around. And it's these areas of high strangeness where they find these, all of a sudden at a night investigation, a cube will just form and disappear. And a meadow will appear, but it's not there. So it's very strange that you say that this is near San Antonio. There are, in my opinion, there are multiple areas like this that are almost like, I don't know, a portal or a vortex or something that is of what we refer to as high strangeness that we can't explain. And it's profound.
Yeah,
So if you ever see a cube, don't go in it.
no, but I do know Jessica Jones has talked about a cube.
Yes. Yes. And I
And
think she investigated with Trey, and that's where she talked about the cube. I believe that's what she's talking about, because
yeah,
I think she's a member. And there were people that two
two guys went in
yeah,
and
went in
disappeared.
and then came back out, and now they're both dead.
Oh, I didn't know they had died.
Oh yeah. Within a year, they had horrific health conditions and just they're gone.
Oh, wow.
So, Trey talks about that in the Meadow Project. So that is actually out if anybody wants to go and stream that. I believe that's on Amazon. And so it's called the Meadow Project, and that is really of high strangeness.
Yeah, and Wendigos were in the area, and I felt they were protecting the area from
Mhm.
people just wandering around. But there was one point where I looked up in the sky and noticed the moon was in a different place. But
Mhm.
in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, the moon moves. So, that's not strangeness."
Yeah.
But the strangeness was on one side, I had Orion's belt looking this way. On this side of the moon, I had Orion's belt looking the other way. And I'm like, wait a minute. There are two Orion belts in the sky at the same time facing each other. That doesn't happen. As far as I
Mhm.
know, we don't have duplicate constellations ever in the sky. And so I was like, where are we? And
Makes you
my
wonder.
friend goes, "Oh, we're in the mirror realm part of this forest." And I was like, "Oh, well, now I understand why I'm seeing two."
Mhm.
And then we walked out of there. And this was the interesting part to me was I could see the water moving on one side of the bridge now.
Mhm.
And on the other side of the bridge, the water was smooth as glass. You could see it, but nothing moving. And so I'm like, how is this water level being maintained where it's moving on one side, stops under the bridge, and just stays still on the other side? That
Yeah.
was a mystery to me. But then this was the other interesting aspect. We went in at like 11:30 at night.
Mhm.
We felt we were in there for, an hour, 2 hours maybe. It was almost 3:30 in the morning.
I was going to ask you, do you have missing time?
Oh yeah.
And
There
that
was
makes sense. That makes complete sense. If you have missing time, having these very strange experiences that you can't explain. And it's just, you have this mirrored area and then you're getting turned around and things are moving, things are there, things aren't there. It makes you wonder, like, you know, are you really experiencing it in the time that you think that you're experiencing it? Or are there pauses
yeah.
and it's
And
changing as you're pausing?
And it's been documented that indigenous tribes lived in this forested area, and they have some, like ruins or like building
Mm.
structures that are in bad shape, blocked off. And I didn't know about the ruins or the one structure we came across in the mirror part. But before that, I had walked and I was trying to go further into this area that was supposedly, accessible. But all of a sudden, these vines that have thorns like came out of nowhere and were cutting my leg, and I had jeans on, and I'm like, how did you cut my leg?
Yeah, especially
And
when you're standing in one spot.
well, I was trying to walk, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
like I got entangled into it and trying to get myself free, and it nicked my right above one of my ankles, and I was like, how did you get through my
Mhm.
sock, my jean, and let alone nick me to the point to where it's like at the end of the day I'm still feeling this nick, and I'm like, hours later, I'm like, this doesn't happen to me. I'm one of those, I get like, I can be scratched by a thorn, and like in an hour I would not even know a thorn had scratched me.
Mhm.
But this wasn't healing, and I wanted to go back there because in this bluish light, almost like, I would describe it, if I had to put it in terms for people to understand, is if you ever watched Star Wars,
Mhm.
where they're talking about, someone's being in the Force, they had that bluish glow about them.
Mhm.
Well, that's what I was seeing. People walking around in that glow,
Oh.
and there was a house there, and I was like, and there's this family, and so I wanted to see, is this really there, or is this another illusion that I'm seeing, or time dilation that I'm seeing?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get through. And when I finally got clear to the vines and came back through, I talked to my friend and I was telling him what I found, and he goes, "Well, I'm glad you didn't go further back." I said, "Why?" He goes, "There's a drop off on a river back there, and we probably would never have been able to find you or get you out of there because it's a really big drop." And I was like, "Oh, so the thorny things were keeping me safe." He goes, "Yes."
Yep, they were holding you back. You're like, "You're not gonna go any further."
Yeah. And so I always find it interesting when that happens because, a lot of times we sit there and we're like, we'll just say, "Oh, I couldn't get through because, apparently there was this bush here." And we're just like, "Okay,
Mhm.
whatever." And we just write it off. But it was like, my mind, I was like, no, that it's like, I could walk through trees. Why could I not walk through that?
Right. They were making sure you stayed right there,
And
which
I
is
was,
great.
yeah,
The fact that they were keeping you safe, so that means that that's a positive area.
I
So
know. And it kind of reminds me of another location I was at in Arlington. Nearby me is a park, and you kind of have to finagle your way through a little fence area to get onto this bridge. But there's nothing on this bridge. There's no lighting or anything. And so I'm walking my first time on there, and I hit a spot on the bridge, and my entire body like freezes. And
mm,
it's like everything tells me just stop. And I pause for a moment, and I'm like, well, there's nothing here. So I decided to turn my flashlight on. I am standing on the edge of the concrete. If I had
oh,
taken one step further, I would not be on the bridge.
oh my word.
So that's another moment where I'm like, yeah, the paranormal world really wants me around, because that was another
Yeah.
golden opportunity where they could have been like,
They're
"Hey,
like, "We've
join
gotta
us."
watch this guy."
They're
He's
like,
walking, just not know where he's going. That would be me. I would just be like, la la la. There I go off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Um, Terry.
Terry's asking, do you think there might be feral people in the LBL?
Within the 170,000 acres, I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely sure of it. And I'm also sure that they are in the Smoky Mountains because I'll tell you, we got permission to go into Cades Cove after hours to do an investigation. It was myself and Greg and Paranormal 411. And we went into the Primitive Baptist Church to do a paranormal investigation. And we went on the grounds as well. And so before we went in, a ranger had told us, listen, we're going to let you in. When you come back out, just open the gate and you can leave and whatever, everything's fine. But they're like, and it showed us a map. Here's where you want to stay. And then they say, you see this circle up here? We're like, mm-hmm. They're like, that's where the feral people are. Don't go in this area or you won't come back out. We're like, what? They're like, we're like, that they're there. They're like, oh yeah, we know that they're there. So they stay up there and we keep everybody safe down here. They're like, do not go up there. So they're very well aware of where these feral people are. These park rangers and stuff, they know that land better than anybody else. So do I think that they're in the LBL? Absolutely. It's 170,000 acres. And the history of the LBL, points to where people were pushed out, a long, long, long time ago. And so people could have stayed and just lived off the land. And these feral people, they not just live off the land, they have their own language, they have their own thing going on. There is a theory or, a rumor that they could be cannibalistic. So yeah, you just don't know. But I do absolutely believe in feral people. I was born and raised in West Virginia. We were told don't never go in the woods because of Bigfoot. There are feral people out there that we do know. There's cave systems and different things that they live in. You just don't go out there.
And it's interesting, like you're saying, like, the park rangers. I just kind of was laughing when you said that they say don't go here because this is where they are.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you realize everyone's gonna go there now that you said don't go there. It's like the human thing to do. It's like our human experience. You say don't go, we're gonna go.
Right. We want to go. Like, what's that all about? Like,
Yeah.
and so, it's a cool experience. And we had a great time in Cades Cove. We got a lot of crazy paranormal activity. They did not want us there.
Yeah, I'm curious. Have you ever done research around the Columbia River Gorge in Washington?
Mm-mm.
I was interviewing a gentleman who has an outdoor store there, and they have a little thing on in their store where you can write down your paranormal experiences. They've had portals photographed, cryptids, found there. And as I'm talking with them, he starts telling me this most interesting story, and my jaw just drops because I'm like, this is unheard of. In the 1940s, there is north of the River Gorge a nuclear facility for making nuclear weapons. It's part of the deal there.
Yep.
Well, the government is trying to keep it safe. And the Department of Energy puts out an article about this. Why the Department of Energy? I don't know. But I'm going to get to that in a moment. I'm going to finish setting up the story. There is a gentleman who's a scientist who has created this fish that is bigger, more meat on it, self-reproducing faster. And so we have a great food source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the military comes in and taps him because they need a creature to protect the military facility that's doing the nuclear armament technology and research. And they go, we can't use the dolphins because they are saltwater and this is a freshwater area.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait, the government is saying they use dolphins as protection? What? Okay, that's interesting. And then they go and they say, there's this article that comes out from Department of Energy says, do not approach these super gators. We have They have been modified to be able to protect this facility and have escaped from the facility. Do not approach. If seen, contact us. And I was like, wait a minute. Did they just admit to making cryptids? And he goes, yeah, they did. In the 1940s, they were making cryptids. They were
That
creating super soldier animals to
Mhm.
protect a nuclear facility. And I was like, and my first question is, well, if the gators escaped, how many others escaped? And is that what is now running rampant in the cryptid world in the US? And that's why our government kind of doesn't want to talk about the cryptids
Mhm.
because they're going to have to admit they made them.
Yeah, and, that stems, the Mothman. Mothman is thought to have been a creation by the US government to protect a facility in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, but I was less like, and my jaw just dropped because it's like, could you imagine today a government department saying, hey,
Oh,
we did this, please proceed carefully?
yeah, like these super gators. What?
And
It reminded me of, Doctor Evil and the sharks with the lasers on the top of their
oh
heads.
yeah,
Don't know why I just thought about that.
but and that's the thing. And like Iron Bear is saying, it sounds
Mhm.
like a three-letter building that's
Yep,
near me.
yep.
There's so many like cryptids that it's like, and they operate only in specific areas, or this or that. Well, somebody, when I was on an interview in the talking to a friend in the UK, they go, hey, have you come across the Dogman in Texas? I'm like, the what? And they go, yeah, there's Dogman in Texas. I'm like,
Mhm.
you talking werewolf? They're like, no, Dogman. I'm
Oh,
like,
man.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I got to research this now. And so I did a whole video back in my origins where I didn't really know what I was doing. And so it's a bunch of placard of information of Dogman sightings and where they're sighted, and
Mhm.
all this research that I did. And I was like, okay, here's my attempt to figure out who and what Dogman is. Well, where do they, what time of day do they come out? Well, they come out in daytime, nighttime, afternoon, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. That's
Yeah.
unusual.
Hmm.
Well, what season do they prefer? Well, they're out in the cold and the heat, so that doesn't
Mhm.
matter either.
No.
And I'm like, do they favor the north or the south? Well, they're all over, so there's not even a geographic. So basically, this thing could be anywhere, anytime, and in any spot. So
Yeah.
sleep well.
Yeah. Good luck,
There's,
everybody. You know,
because we hear
and
like Mothman, he comes out at night
yeah.
usually, or in Chicago, he's kind of been sighted in like dusk or towards
Mhm.
afternoon time. But so many of them, it's like we hear they're only at certain times of the day, so you can be safe, walking around in your mind, going, okay, yeah, avoiding this.
Mhm.
But Dogman, when it was like, yeah, there's no rhyme or reason, there's no anything,
Yeah.
it's anytime, any temperature, anything. I'm like, yeah, good luck if you come across one of these.
Yeah. Exactly. Dogmen, I mean, they are very, very aggressive. I've never heard of a story of them not being aggressive. the people that have seen them or witnessed them, um, they're very, very
Yeah.
aggressive. So it's just been, we know if we ever encounter a dog man, you just get out of there. You fight with everything that you've got. If you have a pew pew, you hit it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like you. It's like I want to respect the fact that I'm in its territory, and
Yeah.
so I'm not going to provoke. But
No.
at the same time, if you're charging me and you got that look of you're going to kill me,
Mhm.
you best bet my defense is kicking in, and it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, it's you or me, and I kind of favor me, so sorry,
Yeah.
dude.
Sorry, boo boo. I'm gonna hit you with bear spray, and it's gonna hurt for about an hour, but you'll be fine. I'd rather do that than put a few holes in it. But think about this. I'm getting charged by, let's just say, a dog man. From my
Yeah.
understanding, these things are massive. I've never seen one. I think I might have seen one walking, but there was nothing concrete. So if you have something like that coming at you, those things are massive. You try to put a couple holes in that, it's going to make them mad. I would
Oh, yeah.
rather hit it with bear spray, blind it for a few minutes, make it cough and hack and going, oh God, and then me getting away than making it angry and coming after me even harder.
Well, that and one of the reports that I read about the dog man that was I actually was kind of laughing about it as I'm reading it. Is these kids claim they were in a car and they drove by, and this dog man came out of the woods and chased them in their car and was able to keep up. And in my head, I'm thinking, you know, dogs chase cars. So is the dog man, just chasing you out of the natural instinct of the dog side of him? Or
It's
and
like a
I'm like,
Scooby Doo episode.
yeah. And then the other part of me is like, this cryptid could keep up with you in a car.
Hmm.
Because I doubt these kids are, going 30, maintaining the speed limit in the
Hmm.
zone. I'm imagining them probably going like 60, trying to get away from it,
Yeah.
and it's
I'm
keeping
not
up
saying it
with
didn't
them.
happen, but I have a funny visual in my head. It's like, you think about, here's this dog man chasing this car, going speeding down the road. But yeah, they're going to be speeding, and you've got this dog man going, "Oh, I'm going to get the car." It's like,
Yeah,
it's funny.
it is. And I believe it happened to these kids, and I'm glad,
Mhm.
nobody was hurt. But it was like I literally had to take a moment and stop laughing in my head,
Yeah.
thinking, this cryptid is chasing a car, and it's
Yep.
called Dogman.
Come here, boy. Come here. Come
Yeah,
on.
and that's the other thing. I wonder, how many times, has, like somebody come across a Dogman and been like, "Oh, here," and throw like something at him, thinking,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's like a dog," and
Yeah.
give
And
it
you
a
got to,
treat, it'll go away or calm down.
right. And then it's
And
like,
it's
no.
probably they're like, "Why did you just throw this crap at me? You just littered on this land. Oh, you just messed with my turf and made it bad."
Yeah. Unless you're going to give me something really good.
Yeah.
Just saying. Oh, that's too
Uh,
funny.
that
Yeah.
is. Oh, Honest Content 17 says, "We honestly don't know our reaction may be, as they can inject a deep internal fear. Train your mind and then train for the attack to save your life." Well,
Yep.
there is something to be said about that, and yes, they can project the fear in your mind, but there's a certain point though that I think, if you are aware of your surroundings, and
Mhm.
let's take, for example, the crawlers, and they, put this projection of crawlers coming at you. in your head, if you are, a novice, not been investigating very long, I can see you totally flipping out and running the other way. And they're like, cool, we protected our land. Great. People who have been investigating for a while, they're not going to be so gullible to just see this image appear out of nowhere and be like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I got to run. And so it's like, yeah, I don't think so. They're going to kind of question it and then falter. And
Mhm.
then you have those investigators that are like, I don't know, how it is. I'm kind of one of them. You put a crawly in front of me and I'm going to run towards it because I want to figure out what it is, where it came from, and my
Mhm.
curiosity overrides my fear. And so
Yeah.
that's why I say I kind of wonder sometimes, about their, putting that fear, if it really would work, because sometimes there are some people that curiosity overrides your fear,
Mhm.
and it's like they're going to be sitting there going, "Oh crap, they're still coming."
Yeah. Yep. And, there are some times that you hear these growls. We've heard many growls. So I've gotten growled at many times in base camp and out investigating. But not all the time does that mean I'm going to hurt you. It
Yeah,
means, hey, I'm here. You need to stay there. This is my warning. And sometimes they just growl. That's it. I
yeah,
look at them as like toddlers that sometimes have a temper tantrum, but other times are very curious.
yeah, and
And that's how I look at it. They're very, very curious most of the time. They
yeah.
just want to know that they're not going to get hurt. And if they feel threatened, they are going to protect themselves.
Right. And I would love to keep talking about this, but we
I know.
are actually at time
Yeah.
because Natalie has another commitment.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to call it here out of respect for her time because I don't want her to be late to another meeting and then going, well, it's because Michael wouldn't stop talking.
No, this was a blast. Thank you so much. This was so
Yeah.
much fun.
And thank you for coming back on. And I, as always, have so much fun talking with you and the, is it Blondes and Booze?
Blondes and Booze. And we've got Greg, the Moist Man Ogles, which you're going to have on soon. And then Paranormal Among Us.
Yes, and so I'll have to get Paranormal Among Us on.
Yep. Paranormal Paul. He was in chat earlier. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm gonna be at in about 30 minutes, well, less than 30 minutes.
I think. Wait, was I on that show?
I don't know, were you? I don't
Uh,
recall.
I don't remember the title of the one, but I was on a show with you,
I
and I
think that was
think it
Blondes
was
and Booze.
no, it was you.
But
I think it was it Paul, or he had to leave early.
that's right. And it was me and Jamie. That's right. Because
Yes,
I remember I was like, no, I was with a woman. No, that was Jamie. And we finished it out. That's what it
yeah.
was.
So yeah, we have to get you guys on my show, and so thank you so much for coming on. Tell
Thank
everyone I
you.
said hello, and always a pleasure. And as always, Natalie, thank you with from
Thank you.
my heart to you, from my shows and from me. Thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, that's
Thank
so
you for
nice. Thank
being
you.
you.
Oh, thank you. I try to be me. And, if anybody has any questions, just reach out to me because I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Well, and with that in mind, like, subscribe, follow along with Natalie on her things. Follow Relic Movies.
Mhm.
Follow my stuff because you never know when we're going to be popping up on each other's shows
Yeah.
and films coming out. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
And with that, I'm going to say good night, everyone.
Good night.